Please take your seats. Our program will begin in just 2 minutes. Please take your seats. Also, as a courtesy to everyone around you, please silence all communication devices. Our program is about to begin. Thank you. Please welcome the CEO and Executive Director of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, Tom Cochran, and Director of Membership, Nan Whaley.
Well, Nan, we're here to talk about membership. We had a great meeting today with all the new mayors. Such energy, I've never seen anything like it.
Absolutely. And Tom, I'm excited to report that you're in front of the largest number of mayors ever at the winter meeting here for the U.S. Conference of Mayors.
And so we have been across this nation in metro areas, state leagues, and we want to thank all the mayors that have helped us do this to increase our membership.
Absolutely. As many of you know, Tom and I have been in over 10 states asking you to host meetings with mayors that may not know about the Conference of Mayors, and it's because of your support and your work that we have 85 first-time mayors here, and folks, we're just getting started.
So, We did a little video to show you our work and the things that we've been doing, and we really appreciate Nan's. I had to convince her to come to Washington to help me, and I think I made a good decision.
Thanks,
So let's
Tom.
show the video.
Thanks, guys.
Well, I think it's very personal what the organization means to me.
It's almost a moral ministry for me to make sure that we are guarding everything that comes out of Washington to make sure that our cities get their share. Well, you know, it was in 1933, the mayors were going through the Great Depression. You had bread lines, and they said, Frank Murphy, the mayor of Detroit, you know, we've got to go see Roosevelt. They came to Washington and formed the United States Conference of Mayors. But we've gone through some turbulent times. In the 60s, we had incredible divisiveness in this country on civil rights. President Kennedy came to Honolulu in 1963 and unveiled his 5-point civil rights program that we endorsed. We also stood in 1971 to stop the Vietnam War and bring our troops home. In today's times, we have the same kind of thing going on with 2 wars that we're living with. It is manifesting itself at our local level.
You know, I went through a number of challenging issues in my time as mayor, as most mayors do, including a devastating mass shooting that killed 9 people and injured 27 more in just 32 seconds. And all too often that's happening to mayors across the country. But I have to say, over 55 mayors called me or texted me that day when it happened. The strength of fellow mayors is what got me through some of the darkest times in Dayton. And for that, I know that is because of my engagement with the U.S. Conference of Mayors. When I stopped being mayor of Dayton, I said I wasn't really going to miss being mayor, but I was going to miss the U.S. Conference of Mayors. And so I'm excited that Tom invited me to come and do this work. It's a great opportunity for me to do what I love, which is being with other mayors. But like Tom said, the real reason I think that people love the conference is the relationships and the camaraderie they have with each other. That intimacy, having those conversations directly with each other, stealing the best ideas, but also making lifelong friends is something that you can't get when there's only one of you in each city, one mayor in each city.
Well, Nan, we have really marched through this nation since you became my director. We have been to, 10 states? Mm-hmm. We've gone through California.
And we did 8 meetings across the state of California, starting in Sacramento with Mayor Steinberg, moving to Oakland, San Jose, Fresno, Santa Barbara, Riverside, Anaheim, and Long Beach, right? We saw this in Oregon and Washington too. We've been across the West Coast, from Washington, Oregon, California, Arizona, Texas, Florida, Georgia twice, and Illinois. We see them a lot at our annual meetings, but having small, intimate conversations with them, and that's what this conference is about.
And we were in the hunt for Republican mayors, Democratic mayors, independent mayors, and it's paying off.
Amazing.
We're in the hunt for you.
Yeah.
We're coming for you.
Picking up bipartisan mayors has been a key focus that you've put forward for us in this work.
We're in a divisive era right now in 2024. We're facing the next election, and it's very important for the Republican mayors and the Democratic mayors to come together and go to the Republican candidates and go to President Biden and say, what do we want for our future?
And I think this conference is the last place where Democrats and Republicans talk to each other and can agree on issues that are pragmatic.
Well, you know, there is something magic about getting 300 mayors together.
Well, I think what's great about winter meeting is that it's always new, right? And so seeing that new ideas, that energy.
We have to be agile and mobile. We have to be listening to the new mayor of Denver. We have to be listening to the new mayor of Chicago. We have to be listening to the new mayor of Houston. We have to listen to them because when they're infusing new ideas, that keeps this organization alive and current, and it will meet the needs of what the American people really need. The purpose of this organization has a moral fiber that stands up
Amen.
when anyone is downtrodden. And so as long as we are here, we will continue to stand up for anyone that's been persecuted, discriminated against. And that is the cardinal virtue of this organization also.
I believe that the keeping of the American democracy is going to be done by America's mayors through the United States Conference of Mayors.
When they come together, it is a powerful moral force that we need to reckon with and understand. And I will continue to use it to help change America, to make it better for all. Thank you.
Please welcome the 81st President of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, Reno Mayor Hillary Sheevey.
Hi. How are you guys? Hi, Mayor Dyer. Can I pick on you? Can I embarrass you a little bit? Yeah, he says fine. He was a previous police chief. So, like, I always say they must have really loved you in your city to become the mayor after being a police chief, right? Give it up for Mayor Dyer. All right, I want to recognize some of our private and public partnerships. I know in my city they are completely essential on many different levels. Obviously, if I want to do initiatives, or even if I'm having an issue in my city with maybe sort of how things are running, it really comes down to lots of private and public partnerships. But we cannot do what we do here at the Conference of Mayors if we do not have wonderful partners. So I am going to embarrass a few of you, and I love to embarrass people. I'm just one of those kinds of mayors. So I want to call out American Institute of Architects. Where are you in the house? Come on. See, this is when I get to find out how closely they're paying attention. Okay, and then Airbnb, where are you guys? Matter of fact, I think a lot of them are backstage. Love working with Airbnb. Give them a huge round of applause. Americans for the Arts. Jay, where are you? Americans for the Arts. Where are you? Okay, you get the free trip to Reno. Okay, all right. Jay, thank you so much for being here. All right, Google Fiber, are you in the house? See, I love this. This is when I can call your boss and be like, yo, bro, he didn't show up to the to the lunch. Okay, let's see. Grubhub, oh, we all love you. Come on, let's be honest. Who orders Grubhub at 2 o'clock in the morning when you get home from the club? Because I know you're all hanging out at the club. Grubhub, thank you so much. HDR, you in the house? There you are. Thank you. Thank you for your continued partnership. Thank you so much. All right. Ike, Smart City. Are you here? Oh, I love how the room gets all quiet. Like, let's see if we can bust them. Did they come or not? Love working with them. Qualcomm, where are you? I heard a woo over here, so I know you're over here. Right over here in the back. Okay, all right, you get points, extra credit points. Okay, Seed. There you are. Okay, let's have a contest. Whoever yells the loudest wins the prize. Okay, Siemens. They've been a great partner for a long time. Siemens, where are you? Thank you so much. Target Corporation. Come on. Right? Love Target. I could spend hours in Target. Love that place. UL Research Institute. Yeah, okay. See, there you go. That's what we're talking about. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Excitement over here. And our title sponsor, who do you think it is? You get a prize if you know. Who's, oh, come on. It's Starbucks. Starbucks. Yay, yay for Starbucks. All right, you're in the back. And matter of fact, I know a lot of those Starbucks people because they have a distribution right outside of my city. Thank you, Starbucks. You've been a wonderful, wonderful partner. I'm actually one of those people, like when I drink coffee, I have to drink decaf, right? Because otherwise, if I drink regular coffee, it puts me to sleep. So that should tell you how bad my ADD must be. That's how I'm measuring it. All right. I have the pleasure to announce one of my favorite mayors who is hosting us today, and she'll be hosting us at the British Embassy. She is an absolute change maker, and every time we are in her wonderful and beautiful city, she has been an incredible and gracious host. So I want everyone to please give it up for DC Mayor Bowser. Come up.
Well, good morning, mayors, or good afternoon. And thank you, Mayor Sheevy, for that introduction and your leadership. Let's hear it for our president. Give Mayor Sheevy a big round of applause. And I also want to thank Tom Cochran and the wonderful staff at the U.S. Conference of Mayors. Please give them a round of applause. And I want to welcome you to the winter meeting in our city, my hometown, and our nation's capital. It's been a few years since we had snow at the U.S. Conference of Mayors for this meeting. And of course, we're dealing with it this week. And I want to just thank, and I hope you'll join me in thanking my D.C. government employees who cleared streets, answered 911 and 311 calls, kept the community informed, and got people inside who need to be inside. We look forward to seeing mayors, and I am delighted to see this room packed to come to Washington, D.C. and talk about the issues that are affecting America's cities. Some of you are here for the first time. If you're here for the first time, give a yell. Welcome, first-timers. And some of you have been around a long time, so give yourselves a round of applause. But each year, we come together to exchange best practices, to talk about what's working in our cities, and to learn from each other. And I think especially over the last several years, we've learned that nobody knows what we do or what we need better than our fellow mayors. So coming back from COVID and what post-COVID cities look like certainly is top of mind for many of us. We, for example, are focused on office conversions, focused on public safety, and making the tough decisions that it will take to bring our cities all the way back. And together, we are a force. We are a national force for advocacy, whether it's with our federal government, on global affairs and also with industry. Industry that wants to serve our residents. And so it is important that we can use our organization to speak with one voice. We know for mayors, red and blue doesn't matter. Our residents expect us to deliver on the issues and the services that affect our lives. We know in DC, for example, coming out of the pandemic, we've been focused on our downtown. We know that in the last several years, we've seen our population increase from the COVID years by 8,000. Ridership on our public transit is up, and dozens of office to housing conversions are underway. And so those are the types of things that will allow us to rebound and to rebound well. We know that our partnerships with the federal government will help us do that, and the conference's focus on those big issues is ever present. So once again, I want to thank you for being in Washington, D.C. I know you're going to do a lot of work here, but I also want to invite you to participate with our restaurants because it's Restaurant Week in Washington, D.C. As well. So we look forward to seeing you at the British Embassy where Dame Pierce will host us to welcome you officially to Washington. Thank you all.
Please welcome back U.S. Conference of Mayors CEO and Executive Director Tom Cochran.
Months before Mayor Shiva became our president, she came to me and she said, you know, we've done a lot on infrastructure. We have the ARPA program, but Tom, we've got to really focus on mental health. And we had sessions with a Surgeon General, and we all heard her outline her agenda in Reno, in Columbus, both of those cities. She took the mantle of this organization, and I said, Mayor, we have to come to Washington. And they had lobby day, and trying to get the Congress to understand that this money needs to come to help us with mental health. She also went to Bristol, England. We met with Marvin Rees. We met with the top doctor in London, and also shared our best practices with the French Association of Mayors. And so we've done a video to show her good work. So let's look at the video, please.
For me, some of the biggest are, facilities for mental health. And so I'm going to continue to push because I think it's the #1 issue in America today is mental health and addiction. So I want to see infrastructure built around healthcare so we can provide access in my city for mental health. And so my priority is mental health. I'm very excited for the next year that we will do everything we can as mayors because we are persistent and we're passionate. We never give up, right? That we will go to the Hill and we will make sure that we fight for federal funding. 90% of that funding for mental health and addiction goes to our states and our counties. It does not come to where we need it the most as mayors at ground zero, right? And so mayors are really wanting to make sure that they are, changing the way that we have sort of failed in this country when it comes to mental health and addiction. Right now, 49% of ages 18 to 24 are experiencing anxiety and depression, and that is staggering. Mayor Bass, I cannot wait to work with you on this initiative. You have a real passion for this. I can't wait to come to your city, and I know in your city that you're doing some great work.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States Conference of Mayors, Mayor Hillary Sheevey of Reno, Nevada.
Rob, I know you're responsible for that video. Where are you? Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. It means so much. It's been a really interesting and honestly humbling last 6 months being the president of the United States Conference of Mayors. I just cannot tell you how lucky I am to have so many mayors being so supportive. And matter of fact, new mayors in the house, raise your hands. Yay! I love this because they're so excited and happy to be here. I was just teasing him, I can't wait to see you in 3 years. When you see your email look like mine and everything's your fault, right? So I always say take credit for all the other things that are your fault, like the good weather, right? All those things. So when it's 70, 80 degrees outside, say, yes, that's my fault, right? But anyway, we're doing a lot of work. It's the first time, honestly, that I have ever heard mayors really address mental health and addiction. You know my personality, it's very, I like to have fun, I like people, I like to be really close to people, I like to get to know you. But I also, have had some personal tragedy in this space. 3 years ago, I lost my brother and my sister and my brother-in-law all within 3 months to mental health. And it was just something that I've obviously known my whole life because I grew up around it, but it was one of those things that was a stigma and you weren't allowed to talk about it. Don't talk about it, don't talk about it. It makes you weak. And I felt embarrassed and ashamed, and I know that they felt embarrassed and ashamed. And so I just can't begin to tell you how humbling it's been to have so much love and support from the conference and from mayors, but reaching out in your cities. And then you guys started to share your stories with me about your personal struggles and about your community struggles. And so we're all growing together and becoming stronger together and tackling this together. And it was just incredible how so many mayors, the influence of mayors when we got to the Hill, and again, it was Democrats and Republicans, but you got McCarthy in the room, Mayor Dyer. He got McCarthy in the room. And that was just, it was incredible because he was so committed and engaged. And Nancy Pelosi was there, and she was so incredible and engaged. So this is something that is affecting all of us and all of our communities. And the fact that we're talking about it today, you heard Fetterman. It was very touching and just so genuine. So I just think that mayors, if we're not talking about it, who is, right? And I had to come forward and say, hey, because it happened during the time when I lost my brother and sister and my brother-in-law when we were having riots in our city. And my sister, honestly, she was dying of breast cancer, and I was taking care of her at the time. And I was thinking, I can't believe that my city is falling apart. My own personal life is falling apart. My family is falling apart. And so I never wanted anyone to go through that alone, ever again. And so I just think all of us collectively together can move the needle on mental health. And all I would ask you is just talk about it, because once you start to talk about it, other people will come forward and share their stories with you. And we will, like I said, we will do this together. And it'll be painful, but we'll do it. Anyway, part of the mental health crisis also has a lot to do with what we're seeing on our streets. And many mayors, it's the #1 issue in your cities is homelessness. And I have 2 wonderful advocates in my city that I can't wait to bring out, because the work that we are doing, we have seen a drop about 50% in our unhoused population in the city of Reno. And we were just featured in the Wall Street Journal. But I could not do this if I didn't have incredible partners that work with me every day and who are committed. And many of you met Grant in San Diego, and he's a very larger-than-life personality, so I really wanted to bring him out so you could meet him. So I have with me Grant Denton from Karma Box Project, and this is also a very good sampling of a private and public partnership. So come on out, Grant Denton. And then I also have someone who's wonderful who has opened up behavioral health hospitals all across the country. And we were so lucky to land him in Reno. He's also starting an initiative, Mayors for Mental Health. Come out, Steve Schell. He is the vice president of behavioral health and director of all things, and whatever I ask you to do, I love you for it. Okay, come on, sit down. I'd love to have a discussion. I don't know if we're showing the video I think we are. I think we're going to roll the video so we can see a little bit about.
Sat down with the director of a nonprofit here in San Francisco, and we asked him, is any city having success at solving the homeless crisis? He immediately said Reno. So yesterday we drove to Reno and saw for ourselves what's working.
This was downtown Reno in 2020, early in the pandemic. Nearly 4 years later, the landscape has changed after Washoe County drastically expanded its shelter capacity.
Because the county has enough shelter beds, the cities of Reno and Sparks can now enforce the no camping rules. This is downtown Reno. There used to be a lot of tents here. Now it has been cleaned up.
Everybody got a shopping cart?
We found Reno's downtown ambassadors patrolling the streets 24/7, making sure people move along and no one sets up a tent. That also means many of the unhoused, like 62-year-old Helena Oliver, finally have a warm bed and food.
Finally, it was my time to live like a human being.
What led to their success? Federal funding during COVID and a well-planned, coordinated effort between the cities of Reno.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. After we were featured in the Wall Street Journal, then we had a lot of press came to town and they wanted to kind of see the Cares Campus and what we were doing. Steve, I want to start with you. We met 10 years ago.
Yes.
And you said, hey, can you come to my wedding? I didn't even know him. It was fantastic. You had a Liza Minnelli impersonator there. I was like, you're so hip. I got to know you. But so let's talk. We immediately connected over mental health. And remember, 10 years ago, no one was talking about it in the city of Reno. And we came up with this grand plan, and you saw it through. You've opened up behavioral health hospitals all over this country.
Yes.
And so I feel like so blessed that I get access to you every single day. But talk a little bit about one of the things that we are doing, and that's opening up a 24/7 mental health intake center.
Absolutely. And just for everyone to know, this is a Tennessee and Alabama accent for any of you mayors that are from Tennessee and Alabama.
Alabama and Tennessee. Where are you in the house? Raise your hands.
But Reno is my home, and it's been my home for 15 years now.
That's a Nevada accent.
I'll never lose the accent, I'm sure.
Okay.
But one of the things that really, I think, attracted Mayor Sheevy and I to each other is the fact that mental health was really not being addressed in our community. And I'm sure a lot of others around the country can say the same thing. And so we started talking about what more can we do in our community. We knew, suicides were up. We knew deaths by drug overdose were up. So we kept trying to figure out what else could we do. And yes, we designed and built a brand new behavioral health hospital in Reno, which was a great step in the right direction, but we knew that it wasn't enough. We had to do more than that. So we started meeting with some of the leaders at the state, and they have a state hospital in Reno that part of that hospital has been vacant for many years. So they offered that facility to Mayor Sheevy and said, you can repurpose that facility if you can figure out a reason, of something to put in there. So we started strategizing, and we really thought that coming up with a 24/7 crisis center was the way to go. We knew that individuals going into the emergency rooms and landing in the jails were really not the appropriate settings for individuals in a crisis, whether it's mental health and or addiction. So we decided to create a crisis center that is staffed with nurses and social workers, as well as peer support specialists. Those are individuals with lived experience. They know exactly what those individuals are going through. So we're very excited that we're opening it this year. The state was able to allocate ARPA dollars to the project. We were able to receive some funding through our county. And so it's truly been a great public-private partnership. Our local nonprofit health system is going to be operating the crisis center, but it's been a wonderful partnership with our city and county leaders. And it's a great way to tackle, I think, the problem. And I know there are lots of other crisis centers opening around the country, and I think every community needs one. It has to be a no wrong door approach. Anybody who is in crisis needs to be able to come through the doors and be received with love and care and connected to the right community resources.
And Steve is right. If you open more doors, then there's more access.
Yeah.
And one of the things I found, and you know this, I've talked to you many times about this, we should not have to have our loved ones arrested to get them mental health help, okay? Because that was really the system that there was in my community. Matter of fact, I called the judge. We have a specific court for mental health, and I called the mental health judge, and I said, what do I do? And she said, you have to have him arrested. And then, that was so hard. Many families, yes, I happen to be the mayor, but I'm like everyone else in the sense, of course I started to worry about if they show up at my house, will they shoot him? What will happen, right? And then it was just a whole thing. So that's where Steve and I started working together, and we're really excited about the crisis center. And it's, 24/7, because I always say this, hospitals are where they fix broken bones, not broken brains. And then we continue to use our mental health hospitals, our jails as mental health hospitals, and totally unacceptable, right?
And I know you'll get into this, Mayor, but our shelter campus in Reno was not even providing mental health services just until about 3 or 4 years ago. So that was something we were missing in Reno.
Right.
And I know you'll talk about this, but that's made a huge impact, on
We talked about that in the press conference. Because one of the things people need to understand, one size doesn't fit all when it comes to homelessness. So you also have to be careful about saying, oh yeah, they're addicts. There's some people that are homeless because they're living on such tight fixed incomes. We see it all the time with our senior population. Maybe they went to pay for one vet bill. Mars Pet Care, I know you're in the house, but what if they had to pay for one vet bill that threw them into homelessness? And we've seen that before. So one size doesn't fit all. And again, I think that's the person too, where I look at the housing first models. Many of you mayors, you hear a lot about housing first models. I think that works for a specific few, but the others have to be identified, whether it's addiction treatment, whether it's mental health treatment, those kinds of things, or whether it's a senior living on a tight fixed income. So, one size doesn't fit all. That's one of the reasons why we have not had this success, is because cities have to roll up their sleeves. They've got to get the work done. The other thing is partnerships with your counties. That has been something that's been really hard for some cities, is their partnerships. We're starting to see a much better partnership with our county, because in our county, they do identify politics. We don't at the city level, but they do over there, so it does get a little bit dicey, but I'm lucky I have good county partners. I want to pivot over to Grant Denton. Grant started something in my city called the Safe Camp, and it was designed to, there were a lot of people in the population that did not want to go into a shelter, right? But they wanted to be kind of part of the model, but they were like, I don't want to be in a shelter with all these people, and it was very overwhelming. But also Grant has a very, very personal story. By the way, you look so nice.
Yeah,
when I see Grant in Reno, he's like in your holy t-shirt and like jeans. I didn't even recognize you, because he's doing the work. He's literally on the ground doing it every single day. But also your story is incredibly compelling, where you came from, why you're doing what you do. So talk a little bit about them. Tell us a little bit about your story, and then kind of, what Karma Box Project does.
So I'm born and raised in Vegas. I came from a family that I was raised in poverty, and there was a lot of abuse in the house. And so ultimately I wasn't the best student in school, and then ended up not being the best adult. And so I ended up spending 9 years on the streets, on and off the streets in Vegas, addicted to heroin and meth, and in and out of the system, in and out of the system, in and out of the system. And it finally took for me to get off the streets. It was a specialty court. I was facing 5 to 7 years in prison, and they asked me, they were like, do you have a drug problem? At first, of course, I'm gonna lie about it. I'm like, no, I don't have a drug problem. I just do all this dumb stuff sober. Yeah. Make all these terrible decisions sober, which makes it worse. So they offered me drug court and rehab, and I took it. And I put as much energy into transitioning my life into being a higher functioning member of society as I did in the streets. And we put a lot of energy into living on the streets. It takes a lot of work. And here we are. So yeah.
Yeah, but you're now transforming lives on all these different levels, and it's amazing. So we've contracted with you at the City of Reno, Karma Box Project, but talk a bit about the culture, because I love your approach, okay? So, I mean, you kind of like give them life lessons, and because you've been there, but it's just like this cultural sort of approach.
Well, so when it comes to addressing homelessness, that's what I love about Reno, is that Reno, like if you know, like what's the problem with homelessness? Is it an optics problem? We just don't want to see them on the street, so we just put them in a shelter, or we put them in a house, and the problem's solved. And you know, it's simple, it's a magic bullet, but it doesn't really solve the problem, and you just relocated them. So how do you work better with this population? Well, you got to get in the trenches with them. And we started an outreach program with the city during COVID, where we were just. It was called the River Stewards, where I would just work in the streets or along the river with the campers. And strangely enough, when you're doing outreach, you're not going to walk up to somebody's tent and be like, "Hey man, you want to change your life?" They'll be like, "Yeah, let me grab my stuff. Let's go." That happens 0% of the time. And so you got to build rapport, and you got to get to know your people. And the best way to know your people is to solve problems with them. And one of the biggest problems when we're in the camps is environmental issues, trash, and behavioral issues. And so I started working with them. We started a program where we were give them gift cards for helping us clean up the river. And in the process, we were building rapport and getting to know our people. And strangely enough, in this process, we learned that homelessness isn't a problem, right? It's a symptom of a problem, right? So you have substance abuse, you have mental health disorder, you got people fleeing from DV, you got you name it. You got co-occurring issues. You got housing affordability issues. You have all of the things, and so it takes a lot of different angles and a lot of different options. So that's when we pitched the Safe Camp, and there's things that we know for sure just from doing the work, and there's 4 constants when you're living on the streets. 1 is you're subject to the elements. 2 is people are going to steal your things. 3 is that you're subject to violence, because that's how we resolve conflict. And 4 is you're always on someone else's property. And these cause us to be in a condition of fight or flight, which means we're always guarded. And there's 2 things you can't do at once. You can't protect yourself and grow at the same time. Mm-hmm. So the idea is that we get people into a safe place where they feel safe, they can calm down for a minute, and then we start working with them. And that's what we call, in this industry, we call it the dance, where we challenge people. Where the dance, where I'm going to lead a little bit, and then you lead a little bit, and I'm going to lead a little bit, and you lead a little bit, and we do the dance until we get somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
Impressive. Yeah. Because you have this no bullshit radar.
Yes.
That is one thing about you. Because I've seen you interact with them, and we speak up at the jail together a lot.
Yeah.
And your story is so inspiring, but you're also calling it out. What's that all about? You kind of have this tough approach, but at the same time, I really believe you have this right approach.
Well, one of the biggest issues that we have coming from the streets into a different social bubble is there's a cultural adjustment that needs to take place. And when you're on the streets, there's things that just make sense down there, like conflict resolution. If I'm on the streets, I'm not going to try to negotiate with you over the bike you just stole from me. I'm going to fight you. And that doesn't work in a job. You can't punch your boss. It's a bad idea.
Oh, you can't?
No. It's terrible. So, but you will have to negotiate with folks, and we have to start introducing things, and we have to start presenting other options. And there's things like on the streets we feel hopeless, right? We feel like we can't do stuff, and the best way to find out what someone can do is do things with them, right? It's do for, do with, and independence. And so it takes this track, and you start working with folks, and then we start to identify people. When I was locked up, I hadn't been employed for 9 years. I had 2 sons that I didn't father. I'm fathering them now. But
you are. I know your kids. They're great kids.
So I felt worthless. And then along the way, I learned that they call it the misfit economy. There's things that we learn on the streets that we can transition into being an entrepreneur. We're risk takers. We're resourceful. I wake up with no money, but I'll still make it happen. And we're resilient. I'm still alive. My heart still beats. I mean, somebody has a purpose for me and loves me enough to keep me alive, whatever it is. And if we can relay this message to our folks and work and carry the narrative, it's a bad idea. We have folks that are advocates for the homeless that, talk about how terrible the system is. Yes, the system's terrible. We know that, but it's a bad idea to convince a homeless person that the world's against them. Yeah. And so it's really important that we carry the narrative, you can, you will, you must, and then because it's on us, right? They're listening to us, and so that's my street approach is to walk with them,
Walk with them. You truly do, and that's what I think makes it the program so powerful. When they see you, they identify immediately because you're also speaking the language too. I want you to just talk about, because I always thought it was powerful, and maybe I don't remember exactly, but you talked a little bit about, I think your mom, them saying, no, you're staying in jail, and something about and you started to read and all these things, this sort of transformation that happened.
Yeah, well, so my granny, I think along the line.
Grandmother.
My granny, thank you very much. My granny she'd always support me. She didn't understand drugs. She was a little bit older, and my aunts and uncles are telling her, Grant's got a problem. She's like, no, he's just tired.
Because he's sleeping all the time.
Like he might be on meth. He's just manic. And so but she'd always back me up. She was my ride or die, man. And when I was out on the street, she'd give me money for groceries. She'd get me a room every once in a while. She'd get my kids a birthday card when I would forget and sign my name. She's a good granny. But when I got locked up and I was facing that time, I wrote her a letter, and I had a lot of people. I would do the campaign, be like, hey, I'm going to be going away for a while. Can you put money on my books? And my granny wrote me a letter that says she's not going to support my lifestyle anymore. And I was upset at Granny, and I wrote her an angry Granny letter, and I sent it off to her. You messed up when you burned the Granny Bridge.
It's true.
That's it.
When Granny doesn't like you anymore, you're in trouble.
Yeah, you messed up big. And so I eventually started reading in there, and I learned that I had a little bit of a paradigm shift. And so I wrote her back and asked her to send me a book on yoga, on mindfulness, on meditation, and all the things. And my granny was just feeding me books, and I was just learning and exercising. I read something towards the end of me being released, because being released into the world is scary. It's a scary thing. I went to rehab, and in rehab it was great. We're doing stuff, I'm learning, but it's scary because it's structured, right? And you have your meals that come, you have things to do, and you don't have access to those things that are going to kill you. And being a drug addict doesn't mean that our brains aren't broken. They're just really efficient. We solve problems really quick, just in the wrong way. And so we just need to learn to channel that, create new pathways. But the world is scary. And I read something right before I left that from Anton Chekhov, and he was a prolific writer, a Russian playwright, and he was an alcoholic and homeless with his mom. And he had a moment where he made a decision, he made a vow to himself, and he says, no more bowing and apologizing to people, no more blaming and complaining, no more disorderly living or wasting time. The answer to everything is work and love. And that was it. I just needed a simple formula. I just needed nobody owes me anything. Put your head down, do the work, and your mom deserves to have her son.
It's so true, right? Gosh, and that's so hard on parents. I watched my mom for so long, struggle watching my brother with his addiction. It was so hard. I love that. So what everything is work and love?
Work and love, and then you figure the rest out as you go. That's my formula.
Okay, I like it. I like it. Okay, Steve, I'm going to have you wrap up. I want you to tell all the mayors in the House why you think every city should have a crisis center, and you've identified a lot of areas of weakness. Maybe talk a little bit about that, but also give them some information to take away, something that they can do in their cities.
Yeah, I think the Crisis Center is such an excellent model to roll out in every community across the country because it is a no wrong door approach. We have a lot of individuals that land in the emergency rooms and the jails that don't need to be there. They don't get connected to the right community resources. So you really need a one-stop shop that's truly 24/7. And you know, we didn't get a chance to talk about funding, but the funding really needs to come to the cities. So that's been one of our challenges in Nevada is
Yeah, and Hillary said something in her out loud voice that was not very popular in front of a certain audience. That's where you should always know your audience. I said, you'll love this, mayors will love this, you guys will laugh. But I said, okay, well, counties are 9 to 5 and cities are 24/7. And I did that in a room full of people in the counties, and they were not happy with me. But that's true, right? Like, we have got to get this funding. We're at ground zero. Where do you think they are? They're in our jails. They're in our emergency rooms. They're on our streets. Who do you think needs that funding? We need that funding, and so we got to work with our counties together. So maybe try not to piss off your county, but I'm glad that you said that. There was one more thing I think that.
But also the collaborative partnerships.
Yes.
It's really important to bring together a variety of community leaders, just like you did a few years ago. You sat us down and said, okay, we've got to fix this. Who can do what? And we figured out where everyone's strengths and weaknesses were. And that really has helped us with our new, shelter campus.
Yes.
We have primary care and mental health services provided there 7 days a week. And that's a result of the collaborative partnerships from the community. So I would recommend that to every mayor across the country.
And I just want to point this out because mayors will want to know, one of the places that you can also find money that we're doing some great programming is through our opioid lawsuit money that's coming into cities. So mayors look into that because people always say, how are we going to fund it? Those kinds of things. So that's a great place to look. So anyway.
That's a huge opportunity, yes.
Yes. Okay, so you're going to wrap it up for me, Grant. Give us some words of wisdom. What do you want to tell mayors?
When it comes, so I guess the overarching was when you start working with your folks, we have to identify that there's four groups that are responsible when it comes to solving this, the homeless and the mental and all these problems. There's 4 groups that are responsible. It's you guys, it's the leaders, government, right? It's the agencies, it's us, it's the public, and it's the homeless. And I think it's important that we realize that everybody has a role. Up until this point, it's just been the government and the agencies, but we also got to get the public involved. We got to engage the public on how to give responsibly and how to help with the homeless and how to direct people in a narrative that they should be carrying when it comes to growing people. And we also, we create these programs about homeless people without really involving the homeless people.
That's true.
It's kind of weird, and I have in our camp, I have a saying up, and I don't know who I quoted somebody. I may have quoted it wrong, but it says, and I say it to our participants all the time. Do not succumb to the soft bigotry of low expectations. Like we know that you're capable of more. We're here for you. We want you here, and we want you to grow. So
yeah, and you're also doing work now with the mayor of Salt Lake City. Am I right?
We are.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we're getting into
You're
Carson City
actually doing
too.
a lot all over the place, all over the country.
Yep.
So mayors have been listening because you've been sort of on the national stage talking about this. So I want to just thank both of you from the bottom of my heart. I'm so fortunate to have you in my community, and I hope that mayors walk away with learning something a little bit on this panel today. So thank you so much. All right, give a huge round of applause for Steve.
Thank you.
And Grant. Steve Shell and Grant Denton, everyone. All right. I don't know if I'm supposed to get off stage. Have you noticed they have me coming and going and coming and going? And so I'm like, oh, this is a lot. Then I'm like, hey, can I just have another mayor come up for a minute and I can go over here. And I'm actually on a council meeting right after I leave here. Can you believe I've got to be on a council meeting? I have to be there because we need a 6/7 of a vote. So it's like I cannot miss it. So I got to be there. But I also want to introduce someone who is doing incredible work when it comes to homelessness. We were just in her incredible city. Obviously, I love the city of Los Angeles. And It's been very, very challenging for her, especially as a newer mayor. She's walking into some very difficult circumstances. But I have to say, when we were there visiting her and touring her city, she is doing a remarkable job, an absolute remarkable job. So it is my honor to welcome Mayor Karen Bass to come out on stage. And she's got a great panel. I think she's coming from this. Come on out, Mayor Bass. Okay, where's the music? This is the music? The floor is yours. All right, take it away.
Since I do not have a microphone, I better come over here so I can address all of you. Good afternoon, mayors. It's really my pleasure to be here. It feels so good to be here this year versus last year when I was mayor for 30 whole days. But I have to tell you, 2023 was a heck of a year, and 2024, just think of all we have on our plates and a presidential election. And so it is going to be an incredible year, and I hope that it's going to be a wonderful year, especially for all of you mayors. So I have to begin by acknowledging and thanking our fearless leader, President of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, Mayor Sheevy, as well as our CEO and Executive Director of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, Tom Cochran. I have to tell you that I so appreciated the warm welcome and embrace that I felt last year, and frankly all this year, after being mayor for a very short time, meeting so many of you that have so much experience, and your willingness to embrace me and help show me the ropes has been something that I deeply appreciated, and I know that I am in the right place here at the U.S. Conference of Mayors. So thank you, thank you, thank you, and give yourselves a round of applause. So I know the very essence of why we are here in our nation's capital is to come together in search of change and to deliver directly to the people who sent us to our city halls. And in many of our cities, one of the major issues that threatens safety, economic and social stability is homelessness. For the hundreds and thousands of Americans who are unhoused, who sleep on our streets, homelessness is a life or death issue. In Los Angeles in 2022, over 2,000 individuals died on our streets. In the first 6 months of 2023, 50 individuals died on our transit system alone. So on my first day as mayor, I declared a state of emergency because of homelessness. 46,000 people in the city of Los Angeles, to me, that is an emergency. So declaring a state of emergency allowed me to fast-track the building of housing and to immediately get Angelenos off the street and into hotel and motel rooms. Learning from the COVID response, and many of you did this through Project Room Key, Project Home Key, with the COVID resources, we organized outreach teams and leased entire motels so individuals could be immediately housed. Specifically those who were suffering in small homeless communities or encampments. We found that housing the entire group together and recognizing that encampments are communities made it much easier for people to accept moving off the street and into housing. We dispelled the myth, in our city at least, that people are not willing to leave the streets. We found people were very willing to leave, and in fact, the problem we've developed is more people come than we actually have the hotel rooms for. So in my first year as mayor, I was truly building the plane while flying. Now the plane still isn't entirely built, but much was learned in 12 months, and I'd like to share a few lessons with you. I also want to make a pitch for the task force on homelessness that meets right after this plenary. So we were able to move thousands of Angelenos off the street last year and into motels. We contracted with community-based programs that provided food and social service support But what we realized is that the agencies, the community-based agencies, really weren't deeply connected into healthcare. And so this year, we have hired a physician to come on as our deputy mayor for homelessness because we learned that there were basically no standards. Every community-based organization approached services differently, and there weren't basic standards, and I believe the standards should be the day you come off the street, you need a full physical with labs and a deep appointment with a social worker to identify exactly what led to you becoming homelessness in the first place. Thank you. Also, so many policies are outdated that need to be changed. For example, the requirement that you have to prove your income. If you've been in a tent for several years, you have no income, so how do you prove nothing? What about an ID? If you don't have an address, how do you get a government-issued ID? So working with our Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Marcia Fudge, that's right, give her a round of applause because she's been awesome. So we were able to get waivers. So you don't have to prove that you have nothing. You can come on into housing. And after you're in housing, then we can get you a government-issued ID. And so those are common sense changes that have allowed us to get people to move from interim housing into permanent housing. So we're going to have our workshop right after this, and I would invite you to participate. We also are going to, modeling after our president, we're going to have a task force convening at the end of April, beginning of May, so that we can go up to the Hill and meet with the administration because we need to push for some very specific changes. Thank you. Some changes can be done administratively, some changes need to be legislative, and so, for example, why should a veteran have to choose between veterans benefits and housing? So I hope that you will join us, one, in the workshop, and then most importantly, I hope that you will join us at the end of April and at the beginning of May so that we can go upon the Hill. We know all cities are facing this and get the legislative changes that we need. Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here with you again. Thank you.
Aren't you surprised to see me? Here I am again. Anyway, how many of you came to our small business women's session yesterday? Raise your hand. Free trip to Reno. Free trip to Reno. See, I see you in the back. Anyway, so this next guest, I absolutely adore him, and I'm super lucky to be working with him in the small business sector. And he is, they gave him a very big title, but I think he's pretty fabulous. So he is the Director of Small Business, Senior Vice President at Wells Fargo. Please welcome Robbie Shapira. Nice to see you. And he always wears a fabulous brooch. A fabulous brooch. I love it. So I always like to see what you're wearing. All right, my friend, take it away.
Hello, everyone. I know the food is starting to settle in, so I'm going to make this quick and energetic. That's my promise. I'm Robbie Shapira. I use he, him pronouns. As Mayor Sheevy said, I am the Director of Small Business Diverse Customer Segments at Wells Fargo. What that basically means is that I lead our efforts to serve diverse and women-owned business. Oh, good, the photos are not up yet. I can just see them. You're gonna see them in a minute. I wanna talk a minute about yesterday. I got to host a panel with Mayor Sheevy and Mayor Nuremberg. Are you in the room from San Antonio? San Antonio in the house? All right, somewhere over there maybe. But for those that missed it, what I'm so proud to work with you on, and our team at Wells Fargo here, what we are so proud to work with you on is how you engage your communities and your constituents, and the power that you can create for entrepreneurship, for diverse and women-owned business. Yesterday on the panel, we talked a little bit about that we launched a report called The Impact of Women-Owned Business. We launched it with Women Impacting Public Policy, two research firms, Ventureneer and Core Women. that helps to set the source of truth about what women entrepreneurship is today. I'm going to give you 4 quick facts, but please Google Impact of Women-Owned Business Report if you want the latest details. But today, there are roughly 14 million women-owned businesses in this country. That represents 39.1%. Give some love for the women entrepreneurs, maybe in the audience. I know several of our mayors are entrepreneurs as well. Women employ 12.2 million employees across our country, and they generate $2.7 trillion in revenue. But it is as recent as 1988 that there were cities in our country that required women to bring a man in to get a loan for their business. These are our mothers and our sisters and our daughters that face discrimination in most of our lifetimes. And that's why it's so important that we wrap our arms around the community of diverse and women-owned business. We've been doing that with the U.S. Conference of Mayors. We're so proud of the partnership in these roundtables. We're going to put some photos up. We did a roundtable in Las Vegas to kick off. Mayor Goodman, if you're in the room, thank you for that partnership and the team from Las Vegas. We moved to Phoenix, where I was born, where I grew up, with Mayor Gallego, and then most recently with Mayor Castor in Tampa. I got to be at that one, so there's me and Mayor Castor and several other mayors. Thank you for those that are in the room. We're so proud that we got this chance to join you in listening to the small business constituents in your communities. What really blew me away was the impact they talked about afterwards as they came up with incredible ideas about how diverse and women-owned businesses could be better served in our cities. They had one thing almost always in common, and that was for a small business, it's very difficult to find resources. How many mayors in the room would agree that you hear that from small business owners, that it's difficult for them to know how to find their SCORE chapter? I'm Mayor Harrell. I live in Seattle, as you know. I am proud of the work that we are doing in Seattle to engage small business owners with resources. But at Wells Fargo, we did something that can help you. So a website to jot down is bizresourcenavigator.com. What it simply does is it'll connect any small business owner with all the CDFIs that are in their community, including the business owner gives a little information, and it connects them with the CDFI most likely to serve their needs. We're proud at Wells Fargo that we've introduced over 3,000 of our customers to this platform, which has resulted in self-identified 61% business owners saying that they are diverse-owned and 42% saying they're women-owned businesses. So this is a way for the businesses most in need of resource to find their local CDFI as an example to engage with. I want to tell one quick story in my last 43 seconds. That's about a business here in DC, Mayor Bowser. We're so proud in your city that we were able to help through what's called our Open for Business Fund, which is the $420 million we received from the SBA for round 1 of PPP that we turned around and donated in all of your cities. And one of the businesses we impacted here in DC is called J.C. Lofton Tailors. It's owned by Eddie Lofton, whose grandfather opened the very first Black-owned tailor and tailoring school in DC. Eddie received a $10,000 grant. We're still in touch with Eddie today. In fact, what he has told us is not only did that help him keep his doors open during COVID, but that his business has recently made upgrades, including a new front counter and flooring and machines, because his business was lifted up and able to keep his doors open. His business is continuing to thrive. And that's the kind of success story that we look to make in your cities. So please reach out to us while we're here, and thank you for your time.
Can you go to the lectern, please?
Oh, see? You never know. Oh, I took it off. Okay. Well, that'll help. And I'm your mayor. Okay. Next up, we have a great panel. It's with Airbnb, and they're doing a lot of great work in the space of housing. So I have been selected to bring out our panelists, and one panelist in particular, I just love and adore her, and she actually was, I remember walking into this room, I don't know, 8 years ago, and I looked up on stage, and I saw the most beautiful woman that I've ever seen in my entire life, and she was just radiant, and her leadership was, just something that I admired for so long. So I want to bring her out first, and that is who I call the Queen, Stephanie Rollins-Blake, and she is a past president of the United States Conference of Mayors. Yay! You remember I watched you and Kevin Johnson on the stage here, and yes, okay. And then we have Jay Carney. He is the head of global, policy and communications for Airbnb. Come on out, Jay. And then, of course, the one and only Mayor Stoney. Come on out. Nice to see you, my friend.
So that was some introduction. I hope I can live up to it. It is so wonderful for me to be back here with all of you. I feel like I'm at high school reunion, just hugging everybody and seeing everyone. And thank you, Mayor Sheevy, for the kind introduction. And I feel that I need to thank you for your bold and visionary and vulnerable leadership. The work that Mayor Sheevy is doing, destigmatizing mental health support and people living with addiction, I hope is not lost on all of you. It is a major problem that we face in the country, and she is leading on that issue with boldness and with grace. So I want to thank you for that. So as Mayor Sheevy mentioned, I have the pleasure of moderating this chat with Jay and Mayor Stoney. And Mayor Stoney, it's so good to see you. Mayor Stoney promised me that his new wife and he will have his baby daughter on my birthday, March 17th.
We're working on it, And
I appreciate that. It means a lot to me. So we're here to talk about Airbnb's latest project, which Mayor Stoney and I are proud to be a part of. Jay, earlier today you announced the Airbnb's Housing Council. A lot of thought and effort went into that project, and that is certainly an understatement. Can you share a little bit more about the Housing Council?
Sure. Well, thank you, Mayor and Mayor. It's an honor to be on this stage with the two of you. The Airbnb Housing Council is really the latest step we're taking as a company in a long history of collaborating with policymakers, collaborating with cities, mayors, city councils, and others, because we're in communities around the country. And we see that the housing crisis, the affordable housing crisis, is affecting most cities now in the country, and it's a #1 priority for mayors. And we want to be helpful in our communities. We care deeply about all of our stakeholders, including our communities. But we've been doing this work for a while. So before I get into what the Housing Council will do, let me say that one of the reasons why I came to Airbnb, I used to be in government, then I was at another company. I came to Airbnb about a year ago because I really appreciated the approach the company has taken, which is not to run from regulation, to collaborate, to engage, to work towards sensible regulation that allows for the economic benefits of hosting in cities and communities around the country, but also protects communities in ways that are sensible and balanced. So we've been doing that work. One of the things we've done in this space recently was donate $3 million towards an initiative in California, ACA1, that is aimed at reducing the voter threshold required to pass general obligation bonds and special taxes aimed at increasing supply of affordable housing. We worked on the successful Prop 123 in Colorado that allowed localities to allocate transient occupancy taxes towards affordable housing. And we've donated to national and local organizations around the country in this cause. We also recognize that because we're involved in the housing space, that we need to be part of this conversation. What we have also seen, and independent data shows this, is that short-term rentals don't drive this challenge. In fact, what we call dedicated listings, dedicated short-term rentals, which are homes that are predominantly used for rentals, account for just 1% of housing stock in major cities in the country. But we are part of the conversation, and we want to be helpful, and this is where the Housing Council comes in, assembling the two of you, experts, academics, other policy experts in this space, to give us advice on where we can be helpful to support initiatives to increase supply, because obviously these are complicated issues, but fundamentally the problem around the country is a shortage of affordable housing supply. So thank you both for participating. I really look forward to working together.
It is certainly my pleasure. So Mayor Stoney, next question is for you. As a former mayor, I know the problems that you face dealing with housing-related challenges in your community. And while, as Jay just mentioned, short-term rentals are not the leading drivers, the thing that I appreciate about Airbnb is understanding that they're not the driver of the problem. They want to be responsible corporate citizens for being a part of the solution. So you all know, the mayors that are here know that there are no shortcuts or simple solutions to this crisis. It's many years in the making, and it will take a collaborative effort to get us to a solution, or to many solutions. We need all community stakeholders, including the public and the private sector, working together on that. So shifting a bit, one of the reasons why I'm excited to work with Airbnb is because I believe in the power of tourism. When I was mayor of Baltimore, tourism was the #2 industry in the city, and I understand that hosting on Airbnb bolsters the local tourism economy by supporting local jobs and small businesses. So the question for you, Mayor Stoney. Today, mayors struggle with multiple priorities, including making their cities economically dynamic places to live for businesses, for residents. You have to do this, attracting new residents while keeping long-term residents. How can you grow local economy supply by supporting both of these goals? And tell me about some of your policies.
Sure. First, thank you, Mayor, for once again having this stage, sharing this stage with you. And Jay, thank you so much for inviting me to the Housing Council as well. And I will tell you this, Jay, no one has ever called me an expert in anything in my entire life. But the fact that Airbnb thinks I can be an expert and help out with this, the housing crisis where we all are experiencing in all of our cities, I want to say thank you. I'm a big believer that either you are at the table or you are on the menu. And I think that partnerships are key to not just the success of our cities, but also the success of our mayors as well. So thank you for allowing me to be a part of this. And I think that Airbnb, a good corporate citizen, can partner with cities to help us with the preservation and the expansion of our housing stock in our cities. And a lot of times, our cities are experiencing serious demand because now more and more people want to live in cities now. We've undergone a great migration of some sort where people were living in the suburbs and now they want to live in cities. But when people want to start living in cities, it has an impact on our housing stock. So once again, a lot of demand, but not a lot of supply. And if we can have conversations with our corporate partners like Airbnb about how we go about preserving the amount of housing we have today with some intentionality around affordable housing as well, so we can secure the future of our residents, particularly for those who were there for the long term. In my city, we were impacted by white flight, and then it became black flight. And so in the 70s and the 80s, when the crack epidemic hit our cities, folks departed Richmond, and they moved out. And now folks are moving back in. And guess what? Our neighborhoods are changing. And also, housing has become more and more expensive as well. And not just an expensive issue for those who are working poor or working class, but also for those who are middle class and upper middle class. If you're a professor trying to move to Richmond, you have a hard time finding a house, and you have to wait 6 to 8 months. in a rental if you can get into a rental. And here's the thing, I'm proud that my city has seen a lot of growth, but I'm also I want to ensure that long-term legacy residents can see a future in our city as well. So a couple things that we're doing. Number one, I believe that localities, mayors, we have to put some skin in the game when it comes to affordable housing. And so you'd be intentional about spending. That's the one power that we do have, finding the dollars necessary to put into affordable housing. So this is what we're going to do. We are going to put $10 million, $50 million, $10 million a year for the next 5 years, $50 million into affordable housing and financing through our capital improvement plan. That's going to help us we want to create 1,000 units every year for the next decade, all right? But when you put skin in the game like that, people in the private sector, in the nonprofit and philanthropic world are watching as well. And that's why local initiatives, support corporation, LISC, I can't believe I got that out of my head, they're also going to match our contribution. So now we have $100 million to spend on affordable housing over the course of the next 5 years.
That's great.
Very important. Another thing I want to highlight as well that all of our cities should be doing, looking at our comprehensive master plans on how you grow your city as well. The one thing that local leaders have the power to do is control zoning. And a lot of times we're dealing with a lot of people who do not want new affordable housing or new density in their backyard. But in order to create more opportunities for places for people to live, you have to actually look at your zoning codes. And that means you might step on some toes, but at the end of the day, you have to welcome these arrivals, these new arrivals in your city. That means you have to lean into density. Very, 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 very important. And also, I will add that when it comes to housing, we have to make sure that we throw the whole kitchen sink at this issue. And a lot of times, we never do that as elected leaders because we're always afraid of what the next election may hold. And that's why I've been very, very, intentional about this. And last but not least, a lot of our cities around the country have inclusionary zoning. In Richmond and in Virginia, we don't have inclusionary zoning. Certain localities do, but we don't. And inclusionary zoning is like the carrot, and sometimes, or it's like the stick. We have to work on the carrot. And so what we've done is we've done a partnership with our Economic Development Authority and with my Department of Housing and Community Development. We've created a rebate program, an abatement program, I guess you could say, on the real estate tax abatement. If you are a developer in my city and you are willing to build affordable housing, we will help you out because we know how difficult it is to build right now by providing an incremental tax revenue rebate to you. And if you commit, though, to make sure that the affordable housing lasts for 15 years, that's a big deal. And so now we have a property already underway. The city council's given its approval, and we have 6 more that's in the pipeline as well, which will create 1,500 new units in the city of Richmond. So you have to be intentional, you have to lean in, and you have to work with partners like Airbnb.
I love that. Thank you for that. I love innovative policy and mayors who put their money where their mouth is. So thank you for that. So, Jay, you've been in your role about 1.5 years. Can you give us a sense of the short-term rental landscape and how you feel the Housing Council will build relationships in that?
Sure. The fact is we, as a company, and predating my arrival, have always embrace the idea that we need to collaborate with policymakers, that we want to address the concerns they have, and they can be very specific, city by city. It could be neighborhood concerns, it could be affordable housing concerns, noise and nuisance, that kind of thing. And we want to be at the table, and we try to, that one of the teams I run, the policy team, is engaged across the country with policymakers to work with them to find balanced regulations that allow for the economic growth that short-term rentals can provide, that allow homeowners, more than 40% of our hosts tell us that they use their earnings from hostings to help stay in their homes. More than 10% said it helped them stay away from foreclosure or eviction. So there are those community-based benefits that we see. So we want to work with localities everywhere to find sensible regulations. We have tools like something called City Portal that provide data and information about the Airbnb landscape to your cities so that you can have more clarity about what's out there and more information to help with compliance. And I think our goal here, and the Housing Council will play a role in this in helping us connect with and partner with hopefully many of you in furtherance of that sort of goal of having balanced regulation, is to avoid what we consider in part, well-intended regulation that's very strict that actually doesn't have any impact on the affordable housing crisis. We've seen this in New York City. Some of you may have read about it. We worked for a decade with the city to try to find balanced regulation, and unfortunately they passed probably the most onerous regulation in the country, if not the world. And unfortunately, the effect that we've seen now from the data has been what we think was predictable. Hotels are now more expensive than they've ever been. I don't know if you have lately, try to book a hotel in New York City. People traveling to New York have fewer options. The short-term rental market has gone underground, off of regulated platforms like Airbnb, decreasing safety, increasing risk for the city, for neighborhoods, and for guests. And there's been no change in occupancy and an increase in the cost of housing in New York since the regulation passed. So I don't think any of those are the desired or even expected impacts. So we want to work with cities to find solutions that address the challenges that you have and also allow for that kind of, I think, beneficial economic activity on behalf of hosts and guests. In addition to what we were talking about before is we need your ideas for where we can be a player to help with these creative policy innovations around zoning or passing bonds so that you can fund affordable housing. Just listening to the numbers that Mayor Stoney was talking about, that gives you a sense of what the nationwide problem is. If you're talking about 100 million plus, think about what the cost is associated with increasing supply around the country. So that means like no one company, no one government agency can do this. We all have to work together.
That's right.
Yeah, I definitely like the idea of balance. As someone who spends part of their time in New York, I think everybody can agree it's gone too far. I mean, families can't afford to visit during the holiday. I mean, it was astronomical, the hotel rates, but they're very happy. So, as you said, every community needs something different. There's no, one solution that fits all, and I appreciate the fact that Airbnb prioritizes working with cities to meet their specific need. So as we lightning round close up, for this question is for both of you. What do you want the city leaders that are in this room to take away from this this conversation, and what can leaders expect from the Housing Council?
Well, I think there's an opportunity for us to leverage the relationship that Airbnb will form with mayors who may be at the table as well, and we can leverage this opportunity for good solutions to some wicked problems. And here's the thing, we experience and we see the challenges of our city every single day. The problem a lot of times is we have finite resources to tackle these problems. However, there's some problems that we can innovate ourselves out of. And that's where I'm looking forward to in joining the council and hoping that we can provide some recommendations on some opportunities to mayors all across the country to sort of innovate their way out of this problem. Now, here's the thing. I hope also coming out of this council that we recognize that we should not put this burden solely on the shoulders and the backs of cities. We've been involved, we're on the front lines of this housing crisis, and we're on the front lines of many crises all across this country. However, I think it's time that our governments, state government and federal government, start getting in the game. We are in the game. We see the crisis firsthand. We see the mother who is facing eviction and she has 2 or 3 kids and she's working as hard as she can, but she can't keep up with the bills. We also understand the individual who, is making every rent payment, but she's living not in a great neighborhood. So we understand the choices that our families have to make. However, we don't always have the financial solutions to solve all of their problems. It is my hope that we work on the possibilities with innovation, but also there was a call to arms for our friends at the state and federal level as well?
I just want to say that one possible solution or contributing solution to that is to have people who've run cities as mayors, get to the state house and run a state. They might be able to bring some innovative ideas.
I like that. Mayors should run the world and run the states as well.
Well, they are the GSD of policymakers. It has to be said. You mayors get it done. And look, I think, for us, we're in this space, but we don't pretend to be experts on the affordable housing crisis by any means. One of the things that we do is, take advantage of, our hosts take advantage of existing housing. So when it comes to increasing supply, we're all ears. We want to learn how we can help. Please come to us. We have a booth here. I've got a bunch of colleagues from the policy team here, including former mayor of Charlottesville, Mike Signer, who's on our team. And come to us if you have ideas or you want to start a conversation. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Jay and Mayor Stoney, I'm looking forward to working more closely with you on this. Thank you for really being a part of this important conversation moving forward. And I hope it has sparked some interest in some mayors around the room, and we look forward to talking to you about it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
To close out today's session, I'm pleased to welcome the United States Acting Secretary of Labor. The Secretary has distinguished herself as an outspoken advocate for workers' rights throughout her legal and political career. Before joining the U.S. Department of Labor, she worked for 17 years as a civil rights attorney, then went to serve as a California Labor Commissioner, and then Secretary for the California Labor and Workforce, the largest state labor department in the United States. In all of these roles, she's achieved real, tangible wins for workers, particularly in raising awareness about the issue of wage theft and improving access to good union jobs. Her leadership focused not just on successful litigation, but also on equity, coalition building, and education, a holistic approach with a proven track record. We look forward to partnering with her to build a resilient, inclusive economy for workers in each and every city in America. Let's all welcome Acting Labor Secretary Julie Su.
Hello, mayors. Are you still eating lunch? I hope you're enjoying it if you are. Thank you so much, Mayor Shivi. Thank you for that beautiful introduction and for all the incredible work that you are doing in Reno, Nevada, and for your leadership here as president of the Conference of Mayors. So for the first 2 years of the Biden-Harris administration, I got to work side by side with one of your own, my predecessor, Marty Walsh, to really try to advance President Biden's vision of an economy built from the middle out and the bottom up through historic investments in America. These investments, President Biden's Investing in America agenda, are about new roads, safe bridges, transformational modern airports. It's about clean energy and clean drinking water. It's about high-speed, reliable internet in every home, and so much more. And it's also about making sure that the jobs that are needed to deliver those things are good jobs in communities that need them the most. So I refer to this as building the high road. And I'll say a little bit more about that high road in a moment. But I think the best way to demonstrate it is to talk about what's happening right now in the city of Pittsburgh. So as part of the President's Investing in America agenda, Pittsburgh was named one of 5 workforce hubs across the country. And the idea behind the workforce hubs was for us to work closely with cities to maximize federal dollars coming in to make sure that they're creating good jobs. And in the process, to develop practices that could be modeled in many more places, practices to ensure that those federal investments translate into real opportunities for all. So employers could get the workforce they need, and working people could find good jobs that bring them into the middle class. So we talk about investments in infrastructure quite a bit. And I think of the workforce system as infrastructure too. It's the roads and bridges that connect people to the good jobs they want and need, and employers to the people that they want and need. And we need that infrastructure to be as strong as our physical infrastructure. So how do we do that? We engage employers who know that it's not just jobs we want, but it's good jobs, good quality jobs. We also make sure that unions are at the table from the outset. We bring in community-based organizations who serve people who have been historically shut out, like people of color, like women, justice-impacted individuals, to help make sure that everyone can get the good jobs that are being created. We build registered apprenticeships and pre-apprenticeship programs with supportive services like childcare and transportation. We bring local colleges and universities to the table so that they can play their part. As a workforce hub, the Department of Labor has worked closely with Mayor Gainey and his team on all of these strategies. And they're embodied in the Pittsburgh Good Jobs Principles, which the city is leading and has engaged labor unions, community organizations, and employers all to sign on to. So Mayor Gainey and local partners are building a coalition with the momentum to get transformative things done, creating good jobs, prosperity, and a stronger city for all. This is what it looks like to take the high road toward job creation and economic growth. And it's something that the Department of Labor wants to replicate all across the country in partnership with all of you. On the high road, workers who have historically been left out or left behind can get connected to good-paying union jobs. On the high road, America has a diverse, well-trained, and ready workforce. On the high road, businesses that play by the rules and treat their workers fairly can compete on a level playing field. On the high road, we support and promote workers' voices, and we create jobs that, in the president's words, give people a little bit of breathing room. When we do this together, we will build not just physical roads and bridges, but the high road to the middle class. And cities are where the high road gets built. I see this all around the country, and I know that Cleveland Mayor Bibb and Montgomery Mayor Reed, who I just recently met with in their cities to talk about these issues, are also here. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about ways that mayors can use the Department of Labor as your partner as you build the high road in your cities. But first, let me say two things that I know are obvious to those of you in this room. The first is that for all of the investments that President Biden's Investing in America agenda are making, we know that the federal government cannot do what local leaders, what you all do. And as mayors, you're the ones with a finger on the pulse of the most important, most urgent needs in your communities, but also the most urgent and important capacity and talents. And as already was said from the stage a little while ago, it's not a one-size-fits-all. But you are the ones with the connections, you are the conveners. And long after the federal government announces a grant or hosts a meeting, you're the ones who keep up the work day after day. Last year, the Department of Labor launched a new initiative called Good Jobs, Great Cities, with Tacoma Mayor Victoria Woodards and 32 other cities. And Mayor Woodards is keeping that initiative going, so cities are sharing with one another how you're building effective pathways into good jobs. And we are in it with you. The second thing I want to say at the outset is that cities are the laboratories for innovation. You all know that. For example, cities are setting minimum wages that are higher than the federal minimum wage, and in most cases higher than the state minimum wage. That makes sense because you see up close just what the impact of poverty wages is on working families and on entire communities. Cities have also led the way when it comes to paid sick leave. And just last week, Tucson Mayor Regina Romero and the City Council passed a prevailing wage ordinance that's going to guarantee that construction workers get paid fairly on city projects. So we at the Department of Labor, we cheer on such innovation focused on making life better for workers across America. And we are in it with you. We can help you build the high road in your communities in some really big ways. So let me start with something called high road training partnerships. That means bringing workers and employers together to design training programs that are tied to actual jobs. It's a job-first approach to workforce development. In other words, a worker's training shouldn't result in a job search. It should result in an actual job. And that's right, give yourselves a hand for that. And here's what that looks like in practice. The Department of Labor has designated 24 infrastructure projects funded by President Biden's bipartisan infrastructure law as mega projects. These mega projects include one to better connect the highway between Boulder and Longmont, Colorado. It includes a project in Christian County, Kentucky, to produce materials for electric vehicle batteries. And it includes a project in Brownsville, Texas, to improve one of our country's most important land ports. For these mega projects, the Department of Labor is rolling up our sleeves before a single shovel hits the ground to help local leaders, project owners, contractors, and unions identify, recruit, and hire women, workers of color, and other underrepresented groups into these jobs that are coming. The Department of Labor is also investing big in registered apprenticeships. I hear all the time from mayors that it's hard for local employers to find the workers that they need. Well, registered apprenticeships are one of the most powerful tools out there for workers to gain the skills they need for actual in-demand jobs. Registered apprenticeships aren't one-off training courses. They're a proven way to build bridges between people and good available jobs. And we just released proposed updates to expand apprenticeships for high school students. That would help cities grow their pipeline of young, diverse, skilled workers to fill jobs of the future and reach young people earlier so they see a path to the middle class without getting a college degree. We also cannot build the high road if we don't also combat the low road. By that I mean enforcing laws that protect working people and holding those accountable who shortchange, steal from, abuse, or endanger their workers. So when it comes to enforcement, we want workers to always get the highest protections to which they're entitled. Meaning we approach enforcement from the perspective of what workers deserve, not what limits government agencies have. So that means partnering with cities. For example, in Minneapolis, where there's a minimum wage and a paid sick leave ordinance that is higher than what the federal law provides, my team at the Department of Labor is working closely with the City of Minneapolis' enforcement arm to collaborate, to make sure that workers know the full rights that they have, and to collaborate on referrals and investigations so that workers just don't get what agency happens to be doing investigation, they get what they're truly entitled to, and we as government work together to make sure that that happens. So by combating the low road, employers also don't have to compete against bad actors. And the Minneapolis workers know that at the end of the day, they're going to get everything that they were supposed to earn. So I've said a lot about the high road that connects workers to good jobs, and I'm going to close by leaving you with some ideas on how to build and strengthen it once you are back home. One of the most concrete ways to do it, even without a big budget or other resources, is to create a coalition that signs on to good jobs principles. So jobs in your city put workers on a path to the middle class. The jobs give them a voice on the job. And it brings the right partners together to ensure that workers, businesses, and communities that you all represent across America can thrive. You can also check out the Department of Labor's Good Jobs Toolkit, and that's at goodjobs.gov. We designed it to support your work to improve job quality, empower workers, and create equitable opportunities. I also hear from mayors about how you appreciate direct funding to your cities. And in fact, cities are eligible for many of our discretionary grants, like ones to prepare workers for jobs in renewable energy, transportation, and broadband infrastructure. And later this year, we'll have a new round of Apprenticeship Building America grants that cities can apply for to be apprenticeship hubs. So keep an eye out for those opportunities. Registered apprenticeships, I think of them as on-ramps to the high road, and the Department of Labor is on a mission to serve 1 million apprentices in 2024. So I know that you want, and I want, people in your city to be among those apprentices. And if you haven't yet done so, set a goal for the number of apprentices that you'll strive for in your city, not just in the private sector, but also in public sector jobs. And please call our Office of Apprenticeship if you want to learn more about how to expand apprenticeships and how to get help from the Department of Labor on reaching traditionally underserved communities in your cities. Finally, commit to hire youth in 2024 in the summer, but also in the sectors that are growing in your cities. And when you do that, please tell us about it because we want to highlight your work. You can find out more about this at dol.gov/YEW. That stands for Youth Employment Works. And I said something about enforcement, so I just want to say one more thing about that, which is as you are building the high road and making sure that you're creating good jobs, make sure that you're also protecting workers in the jobs that they are already doing, and please reach out to us to work with you on that. We have regional offices all across the country that do enforcement, that are committed to ending wage theft, that are committed to making sure that every worker goes home healthy and safe at the end of a work shift, and we want to work with you on that. So cities have the power to do transformative things to connect workers to good jobs and to make sure that every job is a good job, which will support and sustain equitable economic growth all across this country. And that is what the high road looks like. And at the Department of Labor, we are all in it with you. So let's strengthen and expand so that we can reach every community across the country, and let's build this high road together. Thank you so much. We are in it with you.
Thank you, Secretary Stu, for being with us today. And with that, the luncheon is adjourned.